Hey, peace. What's happening, everyone? What do I deal with?
Recognize royalty, recognize it, recognize royalty, gotta recognize it, recognize royalty, like they ain't got eyes to recognize royalty.
I can feel,
recognize royalty,
I can see,
recognize royalty,
now I recognize
royalty,
royalty's eyes.
royalty,
I can see,
recognize royalty,
I can love
recognize
again.
royalty,
Now I
recognize it.
royalty,
I recognize the passion. Never just the man with the title in his hand, with the vital in his hand, with the Bible in his hand. You never just the man with the scepter and demand, with the lecture and the stand, with the vector and the candle. Can you understand the grand from the texture of the hand? Hard at work, are you hard at work? Working with the man, don't kiss the ring of royalty. Crown him king, just a thing, letting loyalty ring. Bring frankincense and myrrh and other things. It's gold already blings from the highest that prizes no sins. Recognize the king's overruling commandments with the Trinity and the power it brings. When you recognize royalty, I feel it.
I can see you.
Yeah, I see it.
Now
I recognize now.
royalty's eyes.
Royalty,
I can see you.
I see it.
I can love again.
Now I'm in love now.
Now
I recognize your passion.
royalty.
Recognize royalty.
So this video is about 3 reasons why FBA is pseudo. We're gonna talk about what I feel are 3 of the main reasons why I consider FBA to be pseudo. I'm sure I'll be able to think of more reasons, but for now, I'm gonna say these are the 3 main reasons that are present in my brain at this point. And so here they are, ladies and gentlemen, 3 reasons why FBA, Foundational Black Americans, are pseudo. The first reason why FBA is pseudo is what I think is the main reason that they are pseudo, and it's this whole idea of them being foundational. The idea is that FBA is foundational, Black Americans are foundational because America is built on slavery. But I challenge that idea because America is not built on slavery. The South is built on slavery. The Confederacy was built on slavery. Black Americans or people who identify as descendants of slaves, because not all Black Americans do, I don't think. But FBA and ADOS specifically identify as descendants of slaves. They have a slave lineage. Their lineage is all about slavery. But slavery was foundational to the Confederacy or to the South. Slavery was foundational to the Confederate States of America, which are the states in the South. The United States of America, the North, the states in the North were not built around slavery at all. So the question is, what was the economy of the North built around? And just a quick ask of ChatGPT. The question was, before the Civil War, what was the source of the economy of the North? And the response is, before the Civil War, the economy of the North was primarily industrial and diversified, unlike the South, which relied heavily on agriculture and slave labor. The key sources of the Northern economy included 1. Manufacturing and industry. The North experienced significant industrialization with factories producing textiles, iron, steel, and machinery. This industrial base was centered in cities like Boston, New York, and Philadelphia. 2. Trade and commerce. The North's extensive network of ports facilitated international trade and shipping. The region exported manufactured goods and imported raw materials and luxury items. Transportation and infrastructure. The North had a well-developed transportation network, including railroads, canals, example, the Erie Canal, and roads, which facilitated the movement of goods and people. Agriculture. While not as dominant as in the South, the North had small-scale farms producing food crops such as wheat, corn, and dairy products. These farms were often worked by free labor rather than enslaved people. Finance and banking. Northern cities like New York became financial hubs supporting industry and commerce with banking, investment, and insurance services. And last, 6, immigration and labor. The North saw a significant influx of European immigrants, particularly from Ireland and Germany. These immigrants provided a labor force for factories, railroads, and construction. That one right there is important. Number 6, immigration and labor. That was the source of the industries of the North, immigration, right? So immigration and the labor and the labor of immigrants is what fueled the economy of the North. Slavery, or the labor of slaves, is what fueled the economy of the South. So slavery is foundational to the South, to the Confederacy. The North has always been about industry. The North has always been about industry, about building railroads and building factories and moving people around. That was what the economy of the North was based on. And after the Civil War, it just expanded on that industrial base. Because, after the Civil War, everything was destroyed. And they had to rebuild. They did the Reconstruction. They rebuilt America. And the rebuilding of America had nothing to do with slavery. Nothing at all. Slavery had ended when America was reconstructed or rebuilt. So America is not built on slavery. America is built on the investment in industry or in industrialization. That's what America is built on. And here's the last thing that ChatGPT says. It says the northern economy's reliance on industry and free labor distinguished it sharply from the southern economy, contributing to the sectional tensions that eventually led to the Civil War. Right? So it was the South's reliance on slave labor that led to the Civil War. America is not built on slavery. America is built on industry and free labor, the free labor of immigrants. Immigrants are more foundational than slaves. So that for me is the main reason why foundational Black Americans, the idea of foundational Black Americans is pseudo. Is because at their very root, they are not foundational to America. They are foundational to the Confederacy. Slavery is foundational to the South, not the North. The North fought with everything to end slavery. And the North won. And the North was based on industry and free labor. So again, America is by no means built on slavery. And, if you're wondering where they got the money from to build these industries during the Reconstruction, that money didn't come from slavery. That money came from the government printing money. Like, the government made that investment. Remember, the government prints money, so the government doesn't need money from slaveholders. The money the wealth of slaveholders and the wealth from slavery was pretty much destroyed during the Civil War. It was pretty much destroyed. Slaveholders lost most of their wealth during the Civil War. Most of their wealth were the slaves themselves. The slaves were worth billions of dollars. So after the Civil War, when the slaves were free, the slaveholders lost their wealth. So America was not built on the wealth of slaveholders. America, again, was built on industry and the free labor of immigrants. So that's the first reason. The second reason why FBA is pseudo is because they promote a slave mentality. ADOS, the American descendants of slaves, they have a slave identity. Their identity is tied around being slaves. The foundational Black Americans, the foundational part is about slavery. So everything about FBA, ADOS is about a slave mentality. And, that pseudo, to walk around with a slave mentality is very pseudo. To walk around in 2025 calling yourself a freedman is pseudo. Slavery ended hundreds of years ago, and FBA promotes the idea of Black people identifying as slaves. And so that's the second reason why FBA is pseudo. The third reason why FBA is pseudo is because foundational Black Americans claim to have what's known as the Majora spirit. And the Majora spirit is what they call Mojo aura. They have the aura of Mojo, and Mojo is pretty much is voodoo. Mojo is magic. The root of Mojo goes back to Africa. Even though they claim they're not Africans, they don't want to be Africans, they're their own ethnic group, they still claim to have the spirit of Mojo, which goes back to Africa. So they're pseudo for that. But the main reason they're pseudo in this respect is the idea that they still hold on to this spiritual voodoo magic, casting spells, that they actually have those powers. They claim that it's that spiritual essence of Mojo that helped them to survive slavery and white supremacy. But we all know that voodoo and magic and spells, we all know that stuff is pseudo. At least I hope we all know that. So, the Majora spirit, the spirit of Mojo, is the third reason why FBA is pseudo. So there you have it. The three main reasons why FBA is pseudo.
Recognize royalty, recognize it, recognize royalty, gotta recognize it, recognize royalty, like they ain't got eyes to recognize royalty.
I can feel,
Recognize royalty,
I can see,
recognize royalty,
now I recognize
royalty,
royalty's eyes.
royalty,
I can see,
recognize royalty,
I can love
recognize
again.
royalty,
Now I
recognize it.
royalty,
I recognize the passion. Never just the man with the title in his hand, with the vital in his hand, with the Bible in his hand. You never just the man with the scepter and demand, with the lecture and the stand, with the vector and the candle. Can you understand the grand from the texture of the hand? Hard at work, are you hard at work, working with the man? Don't kiss the ring of royalty. Crown him king, just a thing, letting loyalty ring. Bring frankincense and myrrh and other things. It's gold already blings from the highest that prizes no sins. Recognize the king's overruling commandments with the Trinity and the power it brings. When you recognize royalty, I feel it.
I can see you.
Yeah, I see it.
Now
I recognize now.
royalty's eyes.
Royalty,
I can see you.
I see it.
I can love again.
Now I'm in love recognize your passion.
Royalty.
Recognize royalty, sunrise royally. Sitting on top of the world, I'm five morally. Status of a king for surely. Orally, we pop dumb things till we stop the impurity. We pop them just for recognition. Listen to the missionary on a mission with the visionary vision. Do you recognize intuition? I reel in men when I went out fishing. I'll tell you why they rocked the boat. Cause they didn't understand what the prophet wrote. What's the conniption? Choose the Jews' crucifixion and refuse recognition at son child's christening in the mix amid some. Insist they fix the system from malarkey back to my monarchy. Yeah, back above me. Don't soil my purple and blue, and I will recognize your royalty too.
I can feel you.
I feel it.
I can see you.
I can see it.
Now
I recognize now.
Royal to these eyes.
Your royalty.
I can see you.
I see it.
I can love again.
And I'm in love now.
Now
I recognize your passion.
royalty.
Royalty.